business work in transformation, in social transformation. The organization that I'm part of and founder of is called One World in Dialogue. And One World in Dialogue, what we're trying to do is to bring a group or to cultivate a network of people who are spiritually mature and socially conscious, who want to create change and realize that change needs to happen not simply through action in the outside world, but also through interaction. Interaction and interaction, I guess. And because without changing the fundamental position from which we relate to each other as human beings, we will not have peace in this world. We will not create the kind of change that we're looking for. That's my deep-seated belief. So, I mean, we do an annual event that started last year called One World Bearing Witness, which is how I came across Rami and not Zen Peacemakers. I had known about Zen Peacemakers for quite some time, and of course Roshi Glassman's work and what it is that he's been doing with Auschwitz and so forth. I live in Frankfurt, Germany, but I'm an American, and I was because we wanted to do something related to bearing witness, and I knew about the bearing witness retreats. I reached out to Zen Peacemakers when we were starting the idea of One World Bearing Witness as a virtual, online, 24-hour ritual to bear witness to the light and dark of humanity. And we did that in December, and we'll do some 24-hour ritual to bear witness each year from now on. Next year, we're going to do a 24-hour meditation ritual, inviting people from all across the world. Our first global online event, we had 89 countries represented. This year we had community activists from the Philippines who are being torn apart by Duterte, engaging in ritual, inviting people to bear witness to what they're working with, the trauma that they're actively engaged in transforming. I'm drawing a blank right now. We had grandmother Flor de Mayo speaking about creating a new living relationship with Earth. I mean, we kind of spanned quite the globe and quite a range, and had 3,500 people sign up, and had a 24-hour meditation room, and then this series of ritual cycles that opened up different themes that we as human beings need to confront and open to in order to move beyond where we are. So that's what we're up to, and we also do trainings and teach dialogue practice based in what we call a higher we, which is coming from a unified field of consciousness. And we have a monthly program called the Global Dialogue Lab, which Rami's going to appear in June, where we speak to spiritual activists, sacred activists, about the changing nature of making change. What is this? What is it that we're trying to do now? How are we trying to not duplicate through the processes of change making the same things that we're trying to change? So that's sort of what we're about. And One World in Dialogue rests within a small educational charity in Germany called Emerge Bewusstseinskultur, which means emerge as an emergent consciousness culture. And we also produce a small magazine quarterly and run training programs and meditation programs and so forth.
Mm.
So thank you.
Mm. Wonderful. Thank you, Elizabeth. Engel, maybe you can go next to bring your voice, if not your face, into the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. I'm Engel Michel Dobbs, representing the Ocean Zendo affiliate. We're a Zendo, a small traditional Zendo. Our founding teacher was Bernie Glassman Roshi, and also Peter Muriel Matthewson. And we do traditional styles and training with a lot of focus on the three tenets and how they work in our lives and our practice. Personally, I also do work in prison with young men who are incarcerated out here on the end of Long Island, and I've been getting very involved in some of the Native American retreats. So that's been wonderful work. And yeah, I think, there various people in our Sangha are work in hospice, do other kinds of work, but the Ocean Zendo is a pretty much traditional American Zen group. Yeah, and that's about it for me.
Hmm. Great. Thank you, Engel.
You're welcome.
Hmm. Yeah, so Engel mentioned, he didn't go into detail, but he's one of the organizers for the Native American programs that we're doing this summer in South Dakota. So very happy that he's helping us. So thank you, Engel.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Have you moved from Paris?
Have I lost?
Have you changed place? I wonder whether you've been in Paris, haven't you?
Have I been to France?
No, have you been in France, or am I?
I was born in France.
Yeah, but you're in the US for a while now. I just was thinking whether you recently changed the place you live, but no.
No, yeah, no. I've been. Oh, you might be thinking of Michel Dubois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Maybe I'm just mixing that up.
Yeah, we're the two Michels.
That's the point of not seeing each other's face. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we interchange a little bit. So yeah, Michel Dubois is the other Michel, and we're always hearing about each other. and we email each other, but we haven't met yet. One day we will. It will be. You'll all hear about it. I also work with I've also done quite a bit of work with the Order of Disorder, and which is bringing some levity to different Zen places. Yeah, and I do that with Moshe, Mr. Yuhu. So we've done workshops, and that's me. No can do. That's me. Yes. And yeah, we've worked at ZCLA and with Enkyo in New York City also. So we've done a bunch of workshops.
Great, thanks, Engel.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, would you like to go next?
Yes. I'm Kathleen. I'm in Germany. I'm in Bonn, so not too far from your place, Elizabeth. I joined the Peacemakers, the Zen Peacemakers in 2011, diving right into the Auschwitz Bearing Witness Retreat, November 2011. And then, well, yeah, kept sharing the pathway, very convincingly up to today. I live in Bonn as a writer and a facilitator of social transition processes, so to say, in companies, but also groups. And I work with co-housing projects and with urban gardening, so more like environmental activism. That's a bit of the space that I'm active in at the moment also. And I only learned that I am an affiliate by you, Rami, because I haven't yet really applied, but I started to facilitate or to organize the monthly ZPO, formerly ZPO, now ZPI, online councils that take place once a month. And I think by that I became an affiliate in a way. And so when I got the invitation to be here with you today, I thought, oh, okay, I'm an affiliate, and I'm proud of it, and that's great. Mm. And it also made me think of my vision of maybe expanding my affiliate status to a deliberate affiliate for Circle Zen, because that's something I was kind of socialized into the Zen Peacemakers by Barbara Wegmüller, who started all these Zen Peacemaker circles around Europe, and I know there are some in the States too. But Barbara was very active here in the recent years, and because this horizontal way of sharing and listening and keeping attention and connecting to each other in a horizontal way is something that resonates deeply with me and also with my social work, because whatever I am active in, whichever issue I'm connected to, I try to initiate processes where people get connect or find their interconnection by doing what they do. Mm. And so I'm thinking now about how I can cultivate the Circle Zen way within the Peacemaker movement more, and that's what I'm thinking about at the moment. And I've also been putting together or facilitating, hosting, how do you say that, stewarding the book Ash Pearls on the 20th anniversary of the Bearing Witness Retreat in Auschwitz that was published 2 years ago. So that was a wonderful way of connecting to many, many people who took part in the retreat during the last 20-some years. And at the moment, I'm together with 3 other peacemakers. I'm preparing a week in the memorial of Buchenwald here in Eastern Germany, which is, of course, inspired and informed by the Bearing Witness retreats. And we're trying to offer this practice and sharing this with peacemakers, hosting it together with people from the Ridvan school, from the Diamond Approach pathway. So we're trying to make an interspiritual experience there also. And I'm also active at the moment, just to give you an idea of some projects, in an interreligious week for sustainability and environment that will take place in Cologne in September, and there are 9 spiritual traditions trying to work together on environmental and earth issues. And so, we're trying to be part of that as a Zen Peacemaker member. That's what we're doing at the moment. So, yeah, maybe that's it for the moment. Hope I wasn't going too long. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. I'll just add a couple of words about Kathleen. First, I want to express my gratitude to you because Kathleen is here in a unique form of affiliation. She, because she's heading the council meetings that we have through ZPI, we have a unique relationship of somewhere between staff, volunteer, and affiliate. So I want to take this opportunity in this form to also just appreciate your volunteer time and the fact that you're putting so much effort into that. And exploring that, because that's also part of what we're doing. We're really exploring like how to go about doing that in terms of delegating a very important part that we want to offer from ZPI's point of view, which is connection to our members, between our members, and working with Kathleen, who already has an established group of facilitators. So yeah, again, just wanted to say thank you for Kathleen. And I should have probably said that as I invited you. Yeah, you were here. And part of the invitation was as the leader of that council group. And I'm very open and curious to talk to you, maybe in a different conversation around what other ideas you have for your own affiliate.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I appreciate this in between stage of something because that elevates my explorer mind. Much easier or much more interesting than having such a fixed role and that everything seems to be clear. So I enjoy it too.
Thank you. Kate, would you mind going next?
Sure.
It's okay. I think we can handle a little bit of barking. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kate. This is my new puppy, Ziggy. It's very enthusiastic peacemaker. Sorry for the hammering too. We have Doug out there building something. And I run the Peacemaker Institute. Well, it used to be called the Peacemaker Institute, and now it's called the Engaged Mindfulness Institute, and also the Prison Mindfulness Institute, which used to be called the Prison Dharma Network. And I've been doing that for about 20 years. And in its current configuration, originally the Peacemaker Institute started in 2001, I think, and we were Fleet Mall and myself were working with Bernie Glassman in Santa Barbara with various projects, and then for various reasons we split off into doing this other organization called the Peacemaker Institute, where we sponsored. We were always a ZPO affiliate, of course, and we sponsored we hosted the first Bearing Witness Rwanda retreat. We hosted that for a couple of years, and then that passed over to ZPO, and then we hosted Auschwitz for a few years when I don't know what was going on, but ZPO was doing some restructuring, and we hosted that. And we did street retreats, of course, for many years. And then we did our own training, which was called the Integral Peacemaker Training. And then in 2000, 3 years ago, we changed the name of that to the Engaged Mindfulness Institute and have our focus on training people as mindfulness teachers with underserved, at-risk, and marginalized populations. And so we've put 3 cohorts through that training, trained a couple of hundred people. We have a 2-year training and a certification, and we certify them as mindfulness teachers at the end. And then with the Prison Mindfulness Institute, which has been going on for 25 years, I've been the executive director for 20 years. And we do, I don't list off all the stuff we do, but we do, one of the, we work with prisoners and have various interventions that we use in bringing skills to prisoners. In the past few years, though, we've started working with prison staff, corrections officers, and now we've expanded out to working with police and first responders. And just currently we're delivering a program for 600 police officers. I think this is kind of exciting that we're moving into various realms of the justice system. We also have an initiative, Mindful Justice, Ziggy, mindfuljustice.org, that brings programs to, Ziggy, brings programs to judges, prosecutors. So we're trying to cover the whole realm of the criminal justice system, from, entry to result of someone ending up in prison, and bringing various peacemaking tools and, mindfulness foundational tools to them. And I'm just down the street from Rami here in Deerfield, Massachusetts. Good to meet. I'm sorry to tell you that I have to leave it. I had to take a doctor's appointment today, so I'm going to have to leave in like 10 minutes. Sorry, but I hope to come to the next meeting. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Kate. And it's great to meet Ziggy. I've met his predecessor, and I'm so glad to see new blood. So let's hear from Miko. I think it's the longest hair I've ever seen on his head, ever. And yeah, Miko, please share.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining this, and especially big thanks for Rami to organize this. And I guess one of the thanks also belongs to Kathleen, who has been so wonderful organizing those council circles, because that was the first way of how I kind of integrated to the whole international peacemaker community. Thank you for that. I'm sorry, I've been just way too busy to participate the councils and also to shave my head. but yeah. So I live in Helsinki in Finland, and I'm a researcher of prehistoric art and also the hunter-gatherer cultures, especially the ones living in the Kalahari in Southern Africa. And I'm an affiliated researcher in Harvard University at their paleontology department, mainly the human evolution. But yeah, I came across Zen about in 2012, and I got interested about the peacemaker practices a few years ago, and I guess it was something like 2 years ago, if I don't remember, when I participated this peace march in Sweden, and that was kind of like organized by one of the peacemakers in Sweden, and I got immediately interested about the practices, and I decided to contact Rami and join the peacemakers. And now, since we organized one street retreat here with my teacher Roger Frank from Belgium, that was in September, and I've participated in a number of peacemaker retreats, the one in Bosnia and now in Auschwitz as well. And currently we're organizing a retreat to visit the Civil War prison camps here in Finland. And that's going to be on the last week of June. We're just going through the last preliminary things to launch it. I guess that will be on Sunday. And it's going to be an interesting package. We're going to visit 3 of the camps that were put up for the Civil War prisoners 100 years ago. And they were the first concentration camps in Europe. And my maternal great-grandfather was one of those camps, spent 1 year in Tammisaari, which was one of the most horrible camps here. And so we're going to visit those places with a group of people, which is going to be quite interesting. There's going to be artists and historians, and one man from Bosnia who served his prison sentence here in Finland. He was a Muslim prison camp guard that tortured and killed people and spent 10 years in prison, and has been going through this kind of like a reconciliation process and forgiveness process. and he's been to Bosnia to ask forgiveness from his former prisoners, and it's kind of painful process for him, but it's interesting to see how he's kind of determined to find peace with himself, and also kind of like trying to invite all these people from different backgrounds in Bosnia together in Bosnia to talk about what reconciliation and peace really means. And he's also trying to organize an event here in Finland to invite a number of people here, because quite many of those Bosnian people were sentenced in Finland. So we're working with him at the moment too. And we do voluntary work for the Salvation Army here. And some of our members go to a local hospice to play music for them. And we have our monthly day of reflections at the Deaconess Center here. We have Lutheran priests on our group, and we try to keep it as less religious as possible, so it would be kind of open to everyone. Yeah, but yeah, with all kinds of things. Lately, I've been trying to settle this retreat and learn how to use Google Drive. I guess that's one of the most important peacemaker practices, really. Yeah, but that's us. Yeah, our group is called the Peacemakers Finland. We just established a website which we're going to launch on this weekend, I guess, if I have time to work on that, but next week at least. Yes, it's wonderful to meet all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all your posts too, Mikko.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. And please send my regards to Frank.
Oh, I will. I will see him again on Monday.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we move to maybe the more open discussion, I just want to again thank everybody being here. I just want to say also just welcome both Elizabeth and Mikko, kind of like more of a newer additions to these larger circles. Kate has been part of this, like you heard, 20 years, Kathleen and Engu. So I really want to celebrate, Mikko and Elizabeth in terms of coming in. And what's interesting, particularly with Mikko's case, is because he really joined as a member and really showed a lot of energy from the beginning. And his affiliate was really developed in relationship. And it was a real pleasure. He just wasn't there before. So one thing or another, he found the people next to him who were interested. And we had a lot of back and forth in terms of just parameters and, so, and what I see, and what Engu was saying, that, there's a lot of energy and momentum. So it's really wonderful. And I just want to highlight and celebrate that. So thank you, Mikko.
Thank you.
I also just want to share a few themes that I whether I know that are here spoken or not. I did hear, Engu speaking about the order of disorder, and Mikko speaking about, his art. And I know, I'm an artist. Kathleen is a poet. This is another part that we would love to see how to bring into the larger Zen Peacemakers International table. The art is such an important place to bear witness, first of all, to go into a place of not knowing. It's like full of activity, and it can affect so much. And we just had an interview done with a local puppeteer who does these one woman shows with puppets that she's creating about the climate. And she goes to City Hall and she just makes this one woman show in front of the City Hall, which is incredible. So it's so I'm hearing that, and that's like one of those things. Exactly why I wanted to meet with all of us is to kind of start picking up those threads and themes, even if they come to fruition, years in advance, years from now. So, I wonder if this would be a good point, kind of segue into the discussion, because I heard, the way Miko was describing his work, like how to make it less religious as possible. And in a way, and I heard immediately Engel was like, I don't know if he was laughing or he was humming.
I'm laughing. So when we went on, we did a second bearing witness retreat, a smaller one after last summer's Native American bearing witness retreat, when we were asked to go back and participate in a meeting where people who were relatives of the 300 or so people who were killed, or more that were injured at Wounded Knee, which was a massacre that happened at the end of the 19th century. And so one of the women there was a young Lakota woman, and she said to me, well, you're a priest? And I said, well, and she said, because we don't really trust priests. And I said, okay, me too. and that opened it up so much. It was fun. So when I hear that, it's funny because Zen is a religion, but not in the traditional sense of that we think of as religions, where someone is dogmatically approaching you with an agenda, but rather approaching you with an open heart and an empty mind. So that's that. When people experience that, they don't quite know what to make of it. But that's been the teaching, all the way back. So from Huineng, and before even. So yeah. But it is a funny thing because it's a constant theme in Zen practice of trying to get out of the religion of it. But
Yeah. Thanks, Angu. So this is really the main thing that I wanted to bring up, because I heard it from many other groups that I spoke with and the representatives of, on one hand, wanting to be less something, whether it's religious or spiritual or agenda, to be as accessible as possible. And I heard, Elizabeth and, speaking about how do we make sure that we really connect from a specific field, right? It's very specific. It's not a wishy-washy, everything goes. And, I can imagine, when Kate goes into, talking with judges and this, and, going with like huge systems of professionals and maybe even legislations, it's like how to make that as, clean, right? That's another issue. It's like how to make it clean so it doesn't trigger, because some people, it can be partisan, right? If you come as a religious organization. So the way the theme came up for me is really the depth and the breadth. Like what works for us and what doesn't in terms of maintaining depth as we try to extend the breadth of our impact. So this is a conversation. This is really, I'm just curious, like, how, thoughts that come up from that. I also want to acknowledge that Kate said that she may leave soon. So Kate, if at any point you need to leave, thank you for being with us. So maybe let's go for about 20 minutes on this subject. I'm really curious to hear your opinions.
I could go first. I think about the theme about avoiding religion. I think I'm speaking about institutionalized religion and not spirituality. And the way that I try to speak about our practice is that the key aspects of how to experience the interconnectedness of life and what non-dual experiences mean, and so on. And that kind of resonates to all kinds of people, no matter what their religious and spiritual backgrounds is. And I just met with this one Lutheran priest who does kind of like chaplaincy work for university students, and she said that because she does her work by herself and she feels like she doesn't have these connections to any kinds of communities where to share their experiences and so on, and where to practice, because Lutheran religion isn't that spiritual practice. And she asked that could she join our group, because she feels like our practice is the practice that she needs to support her in her work as a Lutheran priest working in a university. And it kind of felt, it made sense. And in a way that I've been speaking about this practice on with all kinds of people, like Muslims and so on, it feels like they all share the same emotions and they all feel about spirituality in the same way. So I don't feel any contradictions on that. But since we don't have a Zen teacher here in Finland, I feel it's kind of important to have all kinds of have this the door open for all kinds of people.
Mm.
Yeah, if I would go on this issue, contemplating a bit on my experience. So I let's say I have a longing for the maybe let's say the deeper and less material levels of existence, since I'm able to feel and think. And I moved through my life. I'm 58 now. Without, well, I've been culturally socialized in Christianity. My parents were members of the Christian church, but not very dogmatic or something. And I enjoyed being part of that as a girl. Rituals and singing and having the feeling of being connected to something deeper than just the surface of everyday life. And up to now, I haven't really worked with a teacher. I've tried several times, but it simply hasn't established itself as a relationship. And so, and still, I feel that I'm pretty active in spiritual issues, so to say, or into what I find is the just what's below the tangible surface of things. And as I'm offering a circle, a Zen Peacemaker circle, I have been offering a circle here in Bonn for 4 years. The people who came in the first place were right away from totally different traditions and experiences, people who were totally new and just attracted by the Zen Peacemaker social activism. Then people from other Buddhist traditions, a Hindu, a person with a Hindu teacher, a Sufi, and so from the very first time of these circles that met once a month, and me as a steward or a host was called to find a way to serve them all, or to find that's what connects us, or that's the spirit and the longing that we all share. So and just yesterday, at the same time that we're meeting, of the day that we're meeting now, I was in a webinar, a conference with Otto Scharmer. Maybe some of you know him, who developed this practice of presencing, the theory U, and he again said that to cultivate and shift the space and place of awareness from where we make decisions as close as to our heart area as we can. And that is something that he does in business. He doesn't call himself a spiritual teacher or something. He's a businessman. He's from MIT, working for the MIT and as a teacher, as a senior lecturer. But when I read what he wrote, I found that the borders and the limits between religions and other realms of society are really getting more permeable, because this way of cultivating the heart and making more aware decisions and being more aware of where we decide from, and by that finding, exploring and how to say, working as an artist on our humanity. I feel that's something that we're all trying, and however we call that, or in which kind of tradition, spiritual tradition or religious tradition, we came to that state or place. So for me, that's okay. And maybe the last point, I don't want to be too long, is that what I found in offering service or circles or conversations or peace groups or so, is that I have to be very careful myself on giving my own longing to do this attention and a special form or gestalt, to give that a space. So if I just say I want to offer this and I want to serve others, and be as, that was my experience, to be as broad and open as possible, then I found I got lost, because then I feel that I maybe I just say it plain, I don't get what I need. And so for the food, the soul food that I need from these interconnection and these meetings, I have to take responsibility for my own for my own way of being there and creating the space and holding the space. And so that's what I learned a lot from finding a balance between the depth that I need to be to get soul food for my hunger of depth and spirituality, and to find forms that are as welcoming to others as possible. So, yeah, that was just sharing my thoughts, or like creating words and sentences by thank you. So thanks for listening. Okay.
Yeah, my Zoom has been going in and out a little bit. So I hope it's stable now. I just plug back in. Sometimes it gets a little cranky when it's not, when my battery's getting low. But I appreciated what you said, Kathleen, about longing, and I think I read recently a quote by an American studies professor named Andrew Delbanco, where he said that one of the most striking features of contemporary culture is he said, use the word unslaked, which means like unquenchable and not able to be quenched, longing for transcendence. And I don't interpret transcendence as the opposite of immanence, but as that which in the most deep sense provides the connective tissue between us, between ourselves and that which is ultimate, or between each other. And I think that's true. I mean, I think that we're starved in the West in particular for something that gives us a more ultimate meaning. And I think that starvation gets acted out in ways that are sometimes it seems the absolute opposite of what the impulse may even be originally or really about. And my colleagues and I have been thinking about trans-secular culture. You know, can we create a cultural context that holds the promise that may now be eroding of an open society, of a society of tolerance and plurality, and yet goes beyond that to recognizing that the ways in which before anything we are one, we are connected, and that can pertain to the deepest material sense, if you want, or the most profound sense of being. And so there's something for materialists and something for those who've come to taste something that can't be called material. And I also find that I kind of move. I don't use the word religion, although religion has something, not the institutionalized kind, but in its sense of being bound. It means to be bound to. You know, religio means to bind, and there's some way that we have lost our bindings with each other. We have lost our bindings to the deeper dimensions of life, and so there's something there that the longing that we experience is a religious longing in that sense, even though it may have nothing to do with wanting a church or a set of rules to live by. And I think there is something about the sacred, though, because I often find the word spirituality is a bit too light. It's that it doesn't carry, I think, the depth of desire and the depth of the ache. Or I may now be frozen.
No,
Was
you're
I just
good.
frozen?
No, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. If you tell me when you. Well, I don't know how to. Okay. But yeah, I think spirituality, particularly in the New Age, has become so watered down. And I think a term that I'm interested in bringing back into usage in a way that is liberated from its religious context is sacred. You know, because I believe that we human beings need to have something be sacred, be inviolable, whether that's human dignity, which is the first tenet of the German Constitution, or spirit, what you would call spirit itself, or consciousness, or being, life as inviolable. But the conversation about what is sacred to us, you know, or is anything really sacred to us? And some people then say, well, everything's sacred in a way that makes everything not sacred. But what is it that ennobles us, that brings out the most profound and honorable and connected, loving parts of our humanity? And to me, that is what is sacred. And somehow, you know, I feel, yeah, that sort of that. I think that's why sacred activism, rather than spiritual activism, is something that I find has more weight.
Mm. Mm.
I think this is also related to different cultures and different ways language expresses these things. Because in Finnish, the word religion means kind of like unconditional faith in something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very complex thing for most of the Finns, because we have a state religion, Lutheranism here, and it hasn't been here for a long time, because Finns were kind of shamanic until quite recently, and this natural ways of expressing our religion was kind of like taken forcefully from us. And many of us are descended from the original hunter-gatherers who came here 11,000 years ago. Like myself, I'm 99% from Siberia, and I'm directly descended from the original hunter-gatherers who came here and share the same genome as some of the Northern American indigenous tribes. And so it's a complex thing. And like the Estonians, which is the most atheistic country in the world, that's our southern neighbor, and they have even more devastating history because communism took the religion forcefully away from them. So religion is very much like poison here in Finland. And if you have a religious organization trying to raise money, that always raises suspicion in Finnish. So in that sense, I recognize that I have to be very sensitive with that approach to the Finns. And we have to kind of like try to bring in all kinds of aspects to our work as peacemakers. But also, in some ways, I think we have kind of achieved what we were looking for, because we've been able to do collaboration with different kinds of religious groups and invite all kinds of people to our group. And also the practice we do on our day of reflection, which is kind of like we've taken some of the Buddhist words away from it and translated in a way that it's more understandable for other people, and they feel quite comfortable with the things we do. So,
from what I understand, it's also fairly Finland. It's not dissimilar from Denmark in that kind of state religion. Sweden also, kind of yeah.
But, and Rami, I think too, like, it's interesting for me to listen, because it's funny to be the priest at the table, but 10 years ago, maybe even, this conversation would have happened between priests in the then peacemaker order too. So you're asking, how do we open it up? We're opening it up. It's happening. I'm seeing it myself. So, and I think that, that's wonderful. You're doing it. You're doing that work now, and we have to be patient. It will take time for people to find their way to it, but making offerings, if there are ways of bringing, there has been a long association of artists with Zen. I know in our own Sangha, there's many artists. So finding a way to encourage them to express that as part of their practice, that's a new idea, not a new idea, but it's an idea that I think, our queen was certainly a wonderful painter and poet. And there have been those in our tradition who were that way. Finding a way to give them voice also in these kinds of meetings and things, I think that's a wonderful idea.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll just would love to just say a word here. I'm just interested that Angu was basically saying what I thought I heard Angu say is that a conversation that used to be kind of like behind closed doors for religious people, which are priests, is now a conversation of, whatever we can call anybody other than Engu, lay women and men here. So it's interesting because as I'm listening, I'm realizing like there's a shift that happened to me as I was listening to all of you. Because when I was thinking about the question, I was thinking about it in a very kind of like the question of the linear way, and like how in Zen we talk about the gradual and the sudden, right? And when I heard Elizabeth speak in the beginning, she was saying like, I want to be connected with people who have their established practice. So my initial thought was, in terms of the question was, how can we guarantee that? How can we bring in people? Is it even important, that people have some kind of a sense of that, all the words that you guys use, interconnectedness, transsecular, all of these, some people, there is, if this is the one thing, there is no refutation. I cannot refute. So from that place of really just bearing witness, and like Bernie talks about, at the top of the mountain, there's just bearing witness. It's just bearing witness to opinions. That's it. There's no path. There's no this. There's no that. It's this enlightened reality. So as I'm listening to, I'm actually, my mind is moving towards that. And also in terms of, so then I'm thinking is how am I, what message am I putting out there that can appeal to all of this spectrum? Because I can't even categorize the spectrum, right? It's infinite. So on one hand, if I want to be accessible, I want to be accessible to people who have no connection with interconnectedness or oneness or spirit or sacredness, but something calls them, right? But they may be turned off if I use those other words. So I'm just saying this is part of really the conversation that I'm working a lot, whether I'm working with interfaith people, like, with different religions, language, I heard, I think Miko was talking about the language that he uses. Language is so full. There's so much charge in it. So, yeah. So it's really kind of like a lifetime koan, like the obvious need for training, the obvious need to learn to access back and forth, moving in and out of access, and then there is no access and there's nothing to access, and not even collapse into thinking I understand what any of these mean, and yet put out a message that calls to action. So that's really my question, and it's an open question, and it's kind of taking in all of this. Yeah. Kathleen wanted to say something, so I'll just check back with you, Kathleen, if you'd like to say anything.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, of course. That's now been, my mind has been wiped a bit by what you were saying now, but still, there's a connection to what I was thinking, and that was about impact. I try to remember the start of our conversation, and even though I very often feel this, what others call blessed unrest, or the sacred activism feeling, I needed to, or I need again and again to stop myself from the wish, or of the impulse to create impact. I feel that it's that the earth is burning, and that it needs us, our attention. But as soon as I start to try to be strategic on creating impact, it doesn't work. For me, I think others are much more, as what you said, Elizabeth, about the people who take part in these meditation rituals, and also you, Rami, creating this ZPI platform, and Miko organizing the whole Finnish community of peacemakers during 1.5 years. So I feel that you create a lot of impact and outreach. And I somehow feel I don't, in a way, and I have to go back to myself all the time, and get authentic again, and keep it as a possibility to be totally alone and still not decide differently in doing what I do or feeling what I feel, and that's how I in a way, how do you say that, what's the word? I give up, in a way, I give up to hope that in this or that way I can create more impact. I just gave up, or I have to give up again and again. So that's sad, and I feel sad about it sometimes, but that's always the new start for me. And then, of course, people also connect to me or find something in what I offer that they appreciate a lot, or that they feel encouraged with in my work with trauma and age and everything. So there are, but people have to decide by themselves. If I try to create impact, it doesn't work. That's just my experience. And I just wanted to share that.
I would agree with you. I mean, I think there's something very, I think what you were saying is very profound, and it's also, I think there's a paradox in it. And I know that the impulse to do the work that I'm doing didn't come from a strategy. And I think everyone's frozen. Can you hear me? Okay. It didn't come from a strategy. It came from just like a clear this. It's this. And then I follow that to the next point. And
yeah. It's just this, huh, Elizabeth? We just lost you. We lost you. We lost you.
well, that was total. Like, forget it. But what I was saying was in a certain way. I mean, there's of course one would want to have impact. There's so many things that need impacting. There's so much suffering, so much to respond to, so much to be given. And at the same time, there's something about the integrity of the impulse and just following that integrity of the impulse and not knowing, because I have no idea what will create the change that is needed in this world. I have no idea if it's, to be absurd, one more person on a global webcast that something happens from that I have no idea. I mean, it's not that I go around believing that, but but there's something about the purity of one's own response to something that is beyond oneself. And we get different messages, I think, or different sense of what it is that we're being called to do. And then there are the pressures of running an organization and then having a budget and then having, all those things, and to navigate that, but trying to maintain the purity of not knowing, I think, in relation to the impulse to create something that would be of some benefit.
Mm.
Yeah, if I can say something, I think art is a very important aspect of all practices practiced here. I think our practice is mainly about the non-dual experience and the experience of interconnectedness and making art and experiencing art is kind of like one of the most interesting aspect of non-duality, because Roger Frank is kind of particular with this one, because he thinks that artist doesn't make the things that he does, he just provides the space for art to happen. It's in a way that we buy the art supplies and we make time for this activity to take place, but when we start to make the piece, it kind of takes us away and it carries itself, and accidents happen. And in a way, when good art piece comes together, we have the sense that it's not, we didn't do it, it's chance that made it happen. And many composers, like my wife, always tells me that she doesn't compose the music comes to her and she just plays it out and puts it on paper. And that's a non-dual experience, and that's being open and allowing yourself into not knowing. And yeah, I think one of the aspects here in Finland, which is kind of interesting, is that people feel very much disconnected, and there's lots of suicides, and there's lots of alcoholism and all kinds of problems that are affected, that are closely related to this notion that people feel isolated and people feel disconnected. And religion in many cultures is this kind of binding glue that binds the people together. And that's something which is really missing from Finland, is that people get very, very isolated and lots of depression and suicides because of, and alcoholism because of that. And in many indigenous cultures, they have spiritual practices that binds these groups together. It's like the groups in Kalahari, where there's people, human groups of 25 to 50, and they all related in some ways. And to think about spending your whole life in a desert with all of your relatives, it really demands all kinds of practices to alleviate that psychological stress they have. So they have all kinds of ceremonies built to alleviate that stress. And in my thesis, I also touched the topic that maybe some of the hunting practices, like running down antelope, it also brings out these non-dual experiences, like transforming into an animal and group of hunters becoming the animal and playing out what the animal feels and so on. So they have to become the animal in order to kill that animal. And they also bring this notion back to their ceremonies, and these are the forces that bind the group together. And also that's kind of one of the things that I think that religion also in modern culture does, that it binds the people together and it makes them one. And even rock music does that, the same thing. When we go to a rock concert, we become the music, and we feel good afterwards, and that's a very important aspect. Yeah, but rock music doesn't have so much to do with religion, I think, but the whole aspect of going into a concert, it has the same aspects than going into a church. It serves the same purpose, I think.
There's also, for me, there's the part of it, Rami, which is that, we choose to do the work that we do, whatever it is, if it's Zen or not knowing or bearing witness, we choose to do it in this way. And we are, you know, we might belong or participate with the Zen Peacemaker Order, but that then has, the fruit of it is in our lives, in our whole lives, you know, with the people that we work with the people that we live with the people. Not everyone will choose to do the work in that same way, and they don't necessarily need to. They don't, you know, it's like the idea of when we go out to you know, the West and with the Lakota people, that we're not converting them into making them, we're just bearing witness, you know. Mm-hmm. And we're not there to make them do zazen, you know, or to bear witness themselves or anything. We're there to see and share and be with them. And that happens outside of the context of an organization or group, you know. And then, you know, inside the context of that also. Yeah.
Hmm. Thank you, everyone. I'm just really appreciating just taking that moment and just letting all of this integrate. Yeah, just touching on so many really important subjects for myself, you know, and what is the source of action, right? What's the place of art in it? How do we let go of the urgency? Self-care. How do we nurture our soul? Yeah, just feeling a lot of gratitude. I'm just aware it's we have about 5 more minutes, so I would love to maybe turn it back to you for each one to just say, you know, a few words before we close. But again, I just want to express my appreciation to all of you. I'm also inviting you, if you feel called to continue any of these conversations between yourself, that's one way. But then I thought, because I already have other thoughts around this subject, you know, we can share about that in the Your Affiliate room, where we post news about the affiliates. I think that's a wonderful way to continue conversations and show the other affiliate leaders what's been alive here. So that's wonderful. Yeah, and just appreciating really hearing the 3 tenets so much in everybody, you know, so clearly speaking about, you know, not knowing, bearing witness, and wondering what is this action. And I would love also just to send another invitation. And I didn't want to add this to this conversation, but I would really just want to know how we can support you more from this office in doing what you do. So if anything comes up, either it's conceptually or particular things, please let me know. I would love to hear. So 5 more minutes, maybe, if each of you just want to say a few words to close, and we'll wrap up on time. Thank you so much.
I just want to express my gratitude to Rami about the ZPI Hive. It's a wonderful platform, I think. And after all these data breaches from Facebook last week. I've seen many people expressing their willingness to leave Facebook whatsoever, and I told few people to come to the Hive and share their experiences over there instead of Facebook if they don't feel like it anymore. So I think it's a wonderful thing that there is the Hive. Thank you.
Mm.
And thank you all for this. I'm frozen. Sorry about my wonky internet, and and just thank you all for such a beautiful sharing, and it's always such a touching, such a nourishing, if you want to put it that way, soul nourishing thing to come together with people of depth and deep questions, with deep questions. And yeah, I let's make this take off.
Mm.
Heck with Facebook.
Mm.
Well, I really appreciated hearing what all of you are doing and how you're doing it, and it's wonderful. And thank you, Rami, and thank you all for sharing what you're doing and for doing it. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, and I want to plug my version of the Heart Sutra. Please look it up. It's on the ZPI website somewhere. Of not knowing the not knowing sutra.
Yes, I also enjoyed sharing with you very much. Time slips away in these meetings. I always feel a taste of eternity on my tongue. It's just you have to look on the watch around me, but at this time I hadn't. So I enjoyed just this diving into time also, and co-thinking, co-laughing. It's always joyful to meet here with you.
Mm.
And I experienced again how your deep listening opens my mind and helps me think deeper and broader and more connected. So I really appreciate this time with you, spending time with you. And thanks for organizing it and calling us together, or inviting us, giving us the opportunity to connect each other. And I will go a bit more fearless. I'm training on fearlessness at the moment, so you help me. You surely help me to be a bit more fearless in my next actions, which will be a community garden day tomorrow and a peacemaker afternoon on Sunday. So this is well informed now. Thanks for your companionship.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to wrap all of this with the invocation in the beginning of, all the other people who've been here with us, Kate, people who couldn't be here, and people who will be watching this, and really trying to holding that whole thing together. And I also want to invoke Bernie, who has put all of this in motion. And he's actually downstairs right now, and he's been recovering from radiation. And so I just want to also dedicate the merit of this meeting to his well-being and to all others.
Yes.
Yeah, many blessings to him.
Yeah. Kisses and blessings and greetings.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, so much for your enthusiasm and your experience and the deep listening.
Thank you
so
Rami.
much. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.